The message arrived on every screen, every radio, and every satellite across Earth. The voice was deep, emotionless, and final. Kneel before the Dominion or be erased. It was not a request. It was an order. The Galactic Dominion had spoken. For centuries, the Dominion ruled the galaxy with fear. Countless civilizations had fallen under its control, their people forced into slavery, their worlds stripped of resources. Now their eyes were set on Earth. Humanity was not special. To the Dominion, it was just another weak species, another planet to conquer. But they had made a mistake. Panic and fear. Across the world, fear spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. Scientists analyzed the alien transmission. Military leaders prepared for war, knowing it was a battle they could not win. The images from deep space showed the truth. Hundreds of massive alien warships hovered beyond the moon. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy entire cities in seconds. Their technology was far beyond anything Earth had. People fell into despair. Some begged their leaders to surrender. Others prepared for the end. The Dominion had conquered thousands of planets. What chance did Earth have? But then, something changed. The response. In a hidden military bunker, world leaders gathered. A decision had to be made. Surrender meant slavery. Resistance meant death. The choice was clear. The President of the United Earth Council stood before the cameras. His face was calm, his voice steady. To the Dominion, we say this: humanity does not kneel. The message was sent back to the alien fleet. The response came almost immediately. Then you will burn. The countdown to war had begun. The first strike. The sky turned red as the first alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their weapons glowed, preparing to fire. The world held its breath. Then, something unexpected happened. As the first energy blasts rained down, the alien ships flickered. Their shields weakened. Their systems malfunctioned. Some ships fell from the sky, crashing into the ocean and deserts. The Dominion commanders were confused. This had never happened before. No planet had ever resisted like this. On Earth, military forces wasted no time. Fighter jets launched. Missiles streaked through the sky. Soldiers stood ready. Humanity was fighting back. The war begins. The aliens were powerful. Their technology was advanced. But humans were not weak. They were fighters, survivors, and they were angry. Across the world, battles erupted. Cities burned, but the human spirit did not break. The Dominion had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had awakened something dangerous. They had awakened the fury of humanity. And they would soon regret it. The battlefield was silent for a moment. The massive alien warships hovered above Earth, their sleek black hulls reflecting the fires raging below. Smoke filled the sky. Cities burned. The first wave of the Dominion's attack had begun. Admiral Vorka, commander of the invasion fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Obsidian Wrath. His many eyes blinked in satisfaction. The resistance had been weaker than expected. Humanity had refused to kneel, but it did not matter. They would break, just like every other species before them. A Dominion officer turned to him. "Commander, the first phase is complete. Their largest cities have been hit. Should we begin planetary subjugation?" Vorka nodded. "Send in the ground forces. They will beg for mercy soon enough." The order was given. Thousands of Dominion drop pods launched from the warships, streaking through the sky like falling stars. They crashed into Earth, unleashing waves of alien soldiers armed with plasma rifles and energy shields. They spread across the streets, expecting terrified humans to surrender. But something was wrong. The moment the Dominion forces stepped out of their pods, their equipment began to fail. Their weapons flickered. Their shields weakened. Their communication devices crackled with static. Panic spread through the alien ranks. This was not supposed to happen. Their technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. It had never failed before. In the shadows of the ruined cities, Humanity was waiting. Snipers hidden in the rubble opened fire. Explosives planted in the streets detonated, sending alien soldiers flying. Tanks rolled through the wreckage, their cannons blasting holes through Dominion armor. Drones swarmed from the skies, dropping payloads on exposed enemy units. The aliens had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were walking into a nightmare. Admiral Vorka watched in disbelief from his warship. Why are the ground forces not advancing? The officer hesitated before answering. Sir, their technology is failing. Their weapons are shutting down. It's as if something is interfering with our systems. Vorka's eyes narrowed. Impossible. Find out what's causing it. On the ground, Dominion soldiers tried to regroup, but it was useless. Humanity had turned the battlefield into a death trap. Ambushes struck from all sides. Makeshift EMP devices disabled enemy tanks. Civilians fought alongside soldiers, using whatever weapons they could find. And then, the real counterattack began. From hidden underground bases, Earth's most advanced weapons emerged. Tanks with railgun technology, stealth drones equipped with energy disruptors, and experimental mechs that towered over the battlefield. Humanity had not been idle. They had prepared for this moment. The skies lit up as Earth's Air Force joined the fight. F-35s, upgraded with stolen alien technology, weaved between the enemy warships. They fired missiles that punched through Dominion shields like paper. The once invincible invaders were now the ones struggling to survive. Admiral Vorka slammed his fist onto the console. This is not possible. They are a primitive species. They should not be able to resist. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity was not just resisting. They were winning. For the first time in Dominion history, an invasion was failing. And the worst was yet to come. As the Dominion forces fell back, a new message was broadcasted across the galaxy. A human general, standing on the ruins of a fallen alien drop pod, looked directly into the camera. His voice was cold. You told us to kneel. Now it's your turn. The transmission was sent to every Dominion world. Their people watched in horror. Their unstoppable empire was crumbling. And this was just the beginning. Darkness filled the command chamber of the Obsidian Wrath, broken only by the glowing red tactical screens. Admiral Vorka stood motionless, his claws digging into the metallic railing as he watched the battle unfold. His invasion forces were supposed to be overwhelming, their victory absolute. But now, entire squads had gone silent. Ships were falling from the sky. And humanity, weak, primitive humanity, was tearing his forces apart. A deep guttural growl rumbled in his throat. This was not how it was meant to happen. Status report, he barked. A Dominion officer hesitated before speaking. Sir, we have lost 43% of our ground forces. Our reinforcements are landing. But something is interfering with their weapons. They are unable to engage effectively. The humans are. Adapting too fast. Vorka's many eyes narrowed. That was impossible. No species had ever been able to resist Dominion subjugation. No civilization had ever fought back like this. The humans should have been running, kneeling, begging for mercy. Instead, they were slaughtering Dominion soldiers in the streets, hijacking their weapons, turning their own technology against them. His claws scraped against the railing as his temper flared. Send the next wave, he ordered. Full force. No mercy. Burn their cities to the ground. The officer hesitated. Sir, the cities we targeted first. The humans have already begun rebuilding. Vorka turned sharply. What? The screen flickered, showing aerial footage from a Dominion scout drone. The first wave of orbital bombardment had reduced human cities to smoldering ruins. Yet now, just hours later, those ruins were coming back to life. Humans worked in teams, clearing debris, reinforcing damaged buildings, setting up makeshift defenses. It was as if they didn't understand they had already lost. They didn't run. They didn't surrender. They'd rebuilt. Vorka felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. His fleet was unmatched. His soldiers were the best in the galaxy. His empire had crushed thousands of worlds. But these humans, they fought as if defeat wasn't even an option. Their cities should have been wastelands. Instead, they had become fortresses. And then, the real counterattack began. The humans had been waiting. They had studied the Dominion. And now, they were striking back. A bright flash filled the screen. One of the Dominion warships in low orbit suddenly shuddered, its shields collapsing as a massive explosion tore through its hull. Pieces of burning debris rained down on the planet below. Enemy warship destroyed. A frantic voice crackled over the command deck. Human forces have deployed anti-orbital weapons. We don't know how, but the transmission cut off as another explosion rocked the fleet. Vorka's eyes darted to the screens. More Dominion ships were failing. Their shields flickered. Their engines powered down. Some vessels spun out of control as unseen forces disrupted their systems. Then, the humans sent a message. A video feed appeared on every Dominion screen. It was a captured alien prisoner, restrained and bloodied, but very much alive. A human stood beside him. A soldier, his uniform stained with dirt and smoke, his face hardened with war. To the Dominion, the soldier said, his voice cold and unwavering, "You thought this would be easy. You thought we would needle. You were wrong." The alien prisoner tried to speak, but the human pressed a device to his head, a small black object that pulsed with energy. The prisoner screamed in pain, convulsing as waves of electricity coursed through his body. "You invaded our world. You slaughtered our people. Now you will feel what it means to fight humanity." The soldier leaned in closer. His next words sent a chill through every Dominion officer watching. "We are coming for you." The transmission cut. Silence filled the command chamber of the Obsidian Wrath. Every officer, every soldier, every crew member felt it now. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. Vorka clenched his fists. His invasion was falling apart. His empire was losing control. And for the first time in Dominion history, the ones who had come to conquer were now the ones afraid. The Supreme War Council of the Dominion sat in uneasy silence. Deep beneath the surface of Corfel Prime, their most secure war chamber was filled with the greatest military minds of the Empire. The air was thick with tension. A massive holographic display floated in the center of the room, showing a live tactical feed of the Earth invasion. It was a disaster. Entire battalions had been wiped out. Elite Dominion warships, once thought invincible, now burned in orbit. Communications were failing. The humans had turned the war against them. At the head of the chamber, Supreme Chancellor Malrax watched the unfolding chaos, his reptilian fingers curling into fists. His voice was slow, deliberate, filled with barely restrained fury. "How," he growled, "is this happening?" No one dared to speak. A Dominion intelligence officer finally stepped forward. His voice was strained, as if the words hurt to say. "The humans, they have adapted faster than any species we have encountered. They have reverse-engineered our weapons. They have developed countermeasures against our technology. They are unpredictable." Malrax's eyes narrowed. "Unpredictable. They are primitives. We have conquered civilizations that had ruled for millennia. What makes the humans so different?" The officer hesitated. "They do not fight for survival alone. They fight for revenge." Silence filled the room. For centuries, the Dominion had crushed any resistance with overwhelming force. Their enemies had always fought defensively, trying to survive, trying to hold on. But the humans were different. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to destroy the Dominion itself. A new report flashed onto the holographic screen. It showed something that made Malrax's blood run cold. The humans had begun launching counterattacks beyond Earth. Captured Dominion ships, now under human control, had been spotted in nearby star systems. Supply routes were being raided. Entire Dominion-controlled planets were experiencing uprisings. The war had spread beyond Earth. The humans were no longer the hunted. They were becoming the hunters. Malarax turned to his generals. His voice was low, dangerous. "We cannot allow this to continue. Deploy the Exterminatus Protocol. Erase Earth from existence." The chamber remained silent. The Exterminatus Protocol was the Dominion's final weapon, a planet-killing device capable of reducing an entire world to dust. It was a weapon of absolute destruction, used only in the most extreme situations. A general stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir, if we do this, it will send a message to the entire galaxy. They will see that we fear the humans." Malarax's gaze hardened. "Then let them fear. If we do not act now, we will lose everything." The order was given. A fleet of Dominion warships, carrying the Exterminatus bomb, was dispatched to Earth. If they succeeded, the planet would be reduced to nothing more than a dead rock. But once again, the Dominion had underestimated humanity. The moment the fleet entered Earth's solar system, they were ambushed. Human warships, once crude and outdated, now moved with precision, striking like assassins in the dark. Stealth technology, electromagnetic warfare, and cyber attacks crippled the Dominion fleet before they could even reach their target. One by one, the Dominion warships fell. The Exterminatus bomb was never deployed. Instead, it was captured. And then, the humans did something the Dominion never expected. They didn't destroy the bomb. They sent it back. A Dominion outpost in the Epsilon sector received an urgent distress call. A massive object was approaching their station at high speed. Sensors identified it immediately. The Exterminatus bomb. Moments later, the entire outpost was obliterated in a fireball that could be seen from neighboring star systems. The humans had taken the Dominion's deadliest weapon and used it against them. For the first time in Dominion history, they were not the ones delivering fear. They were the ones feeling it. The Supreme Chancellor of the Dominion, Malarax, stood alone in his private war chamber. The room was dark, illuminated only by the massive holographic display in front of him. It showed the Dominion's fleet, once the greatest armada in the galaxy, burning. The humans had turned the war into a nightmare, and now, for the first time in Dominion history, they were losing. Malarax exhaled slowly, his claws tapping against the metal console. He had watched countless civilizations kneel before the Dominion. He had seen mighty empires crumble under their rule. Yet now, in the span of mere weeks, humanity had done the impossible. They had turned the tide. The humans had taken Dominion warships and made them their own. They had learned how to disable Dominion technology. They had used guerrilla tactics, cyber warfare, and sheer brutality to strike fear into the heart of an empire that had never known defeat. Malarax had ordered the Exterminatus bomb to be deployed against Earth. That should have ended this war. That should have erased humanity from existence. But instead, the humans had turned the weapon against them. They had taken the Dominion's own instrument of destruction and used it to annihilate an entire Dominion outpost. It was not just war anymore. It was humiliation. The war chamber's doors slid open with a hiss. A high-ranking officer entered, his posture rigid, his mandibles twitching with unease. "Supreme Chancellor," the officer said carefully, "we have lost 3 more fleet sectors. The humans are advancing. Everywhere." Malarax turned his gaze toward the holographic map. The human counteroffensive had spread like wildfire. Captured Dominion ships were now leading devastating assaults against Dominion-controlled worlds. Human shock troops, merciless and relentless, had landed on planets that had once been Dominion strongholds. On every world they invaded, they sent a message to the Dominion. This is for Earth. Entire Dominion colonies were falling without a fight. The same species that had once ruled the galaxy with fear was now drowning in it. Civilians fled in terror. Planetary governors surrendered before the first human dropship even touched the ground. The officer hesitated before speaking again. "Sir, some of our own forces are refusing to fight." Malarax turned sharply. His eyes burned with rage. What? The officer swallowed. There are reports of Dominion soldiers defecting. Some have abandoned their posts. Others have outright joined the humans. Malarax's claws flexed. This was worse than he imagined. It wasn't just humanity that had risen up. It was the entire galaxy. Before, the Dominion's rule had been absolute. Their fleets had been unstoppable. Every species in the galaxy had lived in fear of them. But now, that fear was gone. The humans had destroyed it. And fear was the only thing holding the Dominion together. A new report flashed onto the holographic display. Malarax's breath caught in his throat. Earth's fleet, made up of captured Dominion warships and newly constructed human vessels, was heading straight for the Dominion homeworld. A direct attack. It was madness. No species had ever dared to assault Corfel Prime, the heart of Dominion power. Its orbital defenses were the most advanced in the galaxy. Its planetary shields had withstood centuries of war. And yet, the humans were coming. No negotiations, no diplomacy. They had been given a choice, to kneel or to be destroyed. Now they were giving the Dominion the same choice. Malarax's rage boiled over. We are the Dominion. We have ruled the stars for centuries. We will not fall to these savages. He slammed his fist on the console. Mobilize every remaining fleet, every last soldier, every last warship. We make our final stand at Corfel Prime. The officer hesitated. Sir, if we lose this battle. Malarax cut him off with a glare. We won't. But deep inside, for the first time in his long rule, doubt gnawed at him. Because he knew the truth. They had never faced an enemy like humanity before. And now, the war was coming to his doorstep. The skies above Corfel Prime burned. Dominion warships, once symbols of fear and power, now floated as lifeless wrecks in orbit. Explosions rippled through the void, debris raining down onto the planet below. The great capital world of the Dominion, the beating heart of the Empire, was under siege. And humanity was winning. Admiral Leon Carter stood aboard the bridge of the UES Retribution, his gaze locked onto the battlefield before him. His fleet, a combination of human-built warships and captured Dominion vessels, moved with precision. Fighter squadrons weaved between enemy cruisers, unleashing devastating missile barrages. Modified Dominion battleships, now under human control, turned their cannons on their former masters. Every shot fired was revenge. Status? Carter asked, his voice steady. A tactical officer responded. Enemy fleet is down to 40% strength. Their formations are breaking. Carter allowed himself a rare smirk. They were doing it. The Dominion, the so-called unstoppable force of the galaxy, was crumbling before them. But the battle wasn't over yet. On the planet's surface, the real fight had begun. Dominion ground forces, numbering in the millions, had fortified Corfel Prime's capital city. Towering defense cannons fired relentlessly into the sky, desperately trying to hold back the human fleet. Massive fortresses, once symbols of Dominion dominance, now became their last line of defense. But humanity had come prepared. Dropships roared through the atmosphere, dodging anti-air fire as they deployed waves of soldiers onto the surface. The streets of Corfel Prime erupted into chaos as human infantry clashed with Dominion warriors. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds turned the city into a war zone. Sergeant Alex Ramirez sprinted through the rubble of a fallen Dominion tower, his squad right behind him. They had landed in the heart of the capital, deep within enemy territory. Their mission was clear: break the Dominion's last stronghold and bring the Empire to its knees. Move up, Ramirez barked. His squad advanced, taking cover behind destroyed alien vehicles. A squad of Dominion warriors, their armor cracked and worn, attempted to regroup. Ramirez didn't give them the chance. He raised his rifle and fired. His squad followed. The Dominion soldiers fell one by one, their weapons faltering, their once mighty discipline shattered. They weren't fighting an empire anymore. They were fighting a dying beast. Across the city, Dominion commanders tried to rally their forces. War cries echoed as their soldiers prepared for a final stand. For centuries, they had been the conquerors, the oppressors. But today, they were the ones being hunted. Then, the human loudspeakers activated. A deep, calm voice played across the battlefield, broadcasted in the Dominion's own language. This is your only warning. Lay down your weapons. Surrender now, and you will live. Resist, and you will be erased. For the first time in history, the Dominion was given an ultimatum, the same choice they had given to so many others. But Supreme Chancellor Malrax would not surrender. From the Grand War Palace, he stood before his remaining generals, his claws gripping the edge of his war table. His eyes were bloodshot, his composure shattered. "This is not over," he hissed. "I will not bow to these vermin." One of his generals, a veteran of countless campaigns, stepped forward. "Sir, we have lost." Malrax froze. "The humans control orbit," the general continued. "Their forces have pushed into the capital. The fleet is gone. There is no one left to call for reinforcements." Malrax refused to believe it. His empire could not fall. It was impossible. Then the palace trembled. Explosions rocked the foundations. The humans had arrived. Malrax turned toward the great windows of his war chamber. Outside, he saw them. Human soldiers storming the gates, Dominion warriors falling in droves. Smoke filled the city. The great banners of the Dominion lay trampled on the ground. The door to the war chamber exploded inward. A squad of human soldiers entered, their rifles raised, and at their front, a lone figure stepped forward. Admiral Carter. His gaze locked onto Malrax, his expression cold and unyielding. "Supreme Chancellor Malrax," Carter said, his voice calm. "Your empire is finished." Malrax bared his fangs. "You think I will beg for mercy? I will never." Carter took another step forward. "Mercy?" He let out a low chuckle. "We aren't here for mercy." Malrax's blood turned to ice. Carter gestured to his men. "Take him." Dominion soldiers dropped their weapons. Some knelt. Others tried to run. But there was nowhere left to go. The war was over. The Dominion had fallen. The Dominion was dead. For centuries, they had ruled with an iron grip, spreading terror across the galaxy. They had crushed worlds, enslaved civilizations, and demanded absolute obedience. But now, their great empire lay in ruins. The once mighty banners of the Dominion, symbols of fear and oppression, were now nothing more than tattered remnants scattered across the battlefield. The skies of Corthal Prime were filled with human warships, their weapons silent but their presence undeniable. The streets, once patrolled by Dominion soldiers, were now occupied by human forces securing their victory. At the center of it all, Supreme Chancellor Malrax sat in chains. The former ruler of the galaxy, the most feared leader in Dominion history, was now a prisoner of war. His once pristine robes were torn and stained, his face bruised, his claws bound by unbreakable restraints. He had refused to kneel, even in defeat, but it no longer mattered. No one feared him anymore. Admiral Leon Carter stood before him, hands clasped behind his back. Around them, the remnants of the Dominion's high command sat in silence, their eyes filled with shame and despair. Some had surrendered willingly, realizing the futility of resistance. Others had been dragged from their bunkers, screaming curses at the humans who had taken everything from them. Carter studied Malrax for a long moment before finally speaking. "Do you understand now?" Malrax refused to meet his gaze. "Understand? What?" He spat. Carter took a slow step forward. "This is what happens when you push humanity too far." Malrax let out a bitter laugh. "You think you've won. You believe this victory will last. You are fools." His voice was weak, but the venom in it remained. "Empires rise and fall. Yours will crumble, just as mine has." Carter remained unfazed. Maybe. But if it does, it won't be by your hands. Malrax's eyes darkened. Kill me, then, he growled. Do it. Show me that humanity is no different from us. Carter leaned in slightly, his voice cold. Oh, we're different. He straightened and turned to his men. Lock him away. The galaxy needs to see him fall, not as a martyr, but as a failure. 2 soldiers grabbed Malrax and hauled him to his feet. He thrashed, his claws scraping uselessly against his restraints. You think the galaxy will bow to you now? He snarled. You think they will see you as liberators? No, they will fear you. They will turn against you. Carter watched as the former Supreme Chancellor was dragged away. Good, he muttered. Let them fear. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. Where the Dominion once stood, there was now a power vacuum. The fear they had instilled for generations had been shattered. And in its place, something new was rising. Humanity had not conquered the Dominion's worlds. They had no interest in ruling over broken people. Instead, they had done something far more dangerous. They had freed them. Planets once under Dominion control were now rebuilding on their own terms. Former slave species had taken up arms, ensuring that no new tyrant would rise to replace the old. And at the center of it all was Earth. Not as rulers, but as a warning. Every civilization in the galaxy now knew what humanity was capable of. They had seen what happened when humans were pushed too far. They had witnessed an empire, once thought invincible, brought to its knees. No one dared challenge them now. Not out of respect. Out of fear. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, gazing out at the stars. The war was over, but the future remained uncertain. Humanity had proven itself. Now, the galaxy watched and waited. Would they become the next great empire? Would they take the Dominion's place? No. Carter knew the truth. Humanity didn't need an empire. They just needed the galaxy to remember one thing. Never mess with Earth.